how do most people run a job at? We're looking for a person that does this, 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 and this, and has this skill and shows up for work on time and is committed. Da 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 da. You do marketing, you do lead generation for this for customers, right? Do you run an ad for customers going, we're looking for customers who pay their bills on time?
Alrighty, hey everybody, I have Jody Underhill here with me. He is the master at recruiting for trades. That's what I'm going to call you, the master recruiter. With, let's see here, GEA Advantage is the name of his company, and they specialize in recruiting for trucking. But recently, you've been doing some other stuff in the trades, right, Jody?
Yeah, because when you look at recruiting, it's right now because of a lot of things happening with everything in our society. There's a lot of businesses that are lacking people. I mean, you look at it. I mean, even McDonald's has got signs out where they're paying for education. So it's happening across the board. It just whenever it comes to trucking or trades where people have a skill set that's specific to that, it's like it's putting in place so that you can fill those type of positions is what's become more important as time has gone on.
Okay, I really wanted to hear more of your story because you got into recruiting. You said it was by accident, so I was just curious, how did that happen, and what made you want to get into it?
Sure. So I had somebody come to me about a year ago now that said, "Hey, we've done some stuff in the past with marketing, but I've gone back to my roots." He started off in the trucking industry and then kind of transitioned into doing marketing for local businesses,
Okay.
and then went back into trucking because he went back to what he knew. And he came and he said, "Hey, I've got this great program I put in place, and it's working really well, and I think it would be a good thing. I'd like to share it with you to see if you want to also do it." And I said, yeah. And he said, I think we can get other people to do it as well because, you allow a lot of people. So kind of put a program together and things went along really well for a couple months until we actually started closing deals and brought them like 12 trucking companies in a 30-day time frame, and the fulfillment collapsed. And because I don't do things that don't work, I said, you know what, that's it. No problem. You step aside. We'll take it over. We'll build it out. We'll figure it out. It was a couple months of just like really just nose to the grindstone, beating our head against the wall, figuring out the whole process. But once we did, we also changed the way that recruiting's done in the trucking industry. Because right now in the trucking industry, there's a lot of companies out there like the Randall Rileys of the world, which bring leads, but they don't bring people who are absolutely qualified. So what we started doing is getting the application in. They're putting them on job boards in different places. We use a different source for getting the leads. And then we go ahead and make sure they're qualified because every trucking company, just like a lot of home services companies and trades, have requirements that the employee has to have. So in the trucking industry, like some of them, they have to be at least 24 years of age, have 2 years experience with a CDLA license. They have to have 6 months experience with a flatbed or drive-in or a refrigerated trailer, whatever that is. No more than 3 tickets on their motor vehicle report. So those are the things are being insurable. So what we do is we bring them qualified applicants based on their requirements.
Okay. And is that just something that you have to like have them fill out a landing page, and you're just going to get some that aren't qualified, and you just have to filter it by the people who are qualified?
Yeah, you got, as we say, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to get to the prince.
That's a good. I'm going to use that one.
Right. So we have, we got a lot of people because even no matter how you run the ads, no matter how many times you say you must have 24 months experience, you have people going, I'm brand new. Can you hire me? They always say they'll take a chance, right? They'll fill out the form because who knows, maybe there's a chance. So you kind of have to weed through those. That's to kind of get the application filled out. And then once the application is filled out, and then you have to go through to make sure that they're qualified, that they don't have any tickets, they don't have a rollover accident or they left a truck somewhere and got on a plane and flew home. You have to find out those types of things to make sure there's someone that the company actually wants to hire. And
so do you feel like it's easier because I know you're doing a little bit of this in home service as well. Do you feel like it's easier to find qualified applicants for home service than it is in the trucking industry, or about the same, or what's been the case?
It's about the same, but it's different, right? And it depends on the trade. So for instance, if you're trying to get journeyman electricians, they've got to have a journeyman ticket, right? They've got to have that. They got to be a licensed electrician. In some states, plumbers have to be licensed. In other states, they don't. They just have to prove they have experience. So it depends on the state, it depends on the requirements, and it depends on what the trade is. For instance, getting laborers for landscaping, probably not that tough. Getting certified electricians for an electrical company, a little bit tougher. You're looking for people that working on for plumbing that don't have to be necessarily licensed, that just have experience, a little easier. The easiest thing to fill are apprentice positions. People that right now, because everyone's starting to look, because a lot of the incentives to not work are kind of going away right now. So people are back looking. They're back looking at what to do. And so, while I would say trucking is probably a little bit easier, simply because it's one job, and you have 1 million people, or you have actually 5 million people across the United States that have that to do that same job. It's driving a truck. It's having the same license across the board. When you're dealing with trades, everyone's different. Now, granted, companies have different insurability requirements in trucking, and they want them to drive a flatbed versus a drive-in. But with, like I said, in the trades, just like, for instance, take plumbing. You have a plumbing service technician to go on trouble calls, and you have a different plumber that's an installer. Then you have a different one that does trenching, possibly, right? So you have all those different positions, and you have sales positions. You have customer service.
I wanted to ask you about that, though, because so for my business, my philosophy is I do everything maybe between 1 and 5 times to iron out the process, and then my focus becomes teaching others how to do it. So when I recruit, I don't look for people who are already experienced. I look for people who have a good attitude, who are willing to learn, willing to be humble, willing to work, and then I try to cultivate those skills in them. So I'm just wondering, when you're putting these ads out there, is there any way to really screen for that? Is there any way to screen or do anything to attract people who are likely to be cultural fits, whether or not they have the skills?
With the ad itself, no, because most of what we do is through Facebook and Instagram, which, as you know, from being from that world, is very restrictive. Again, and you don't have to just meet the EEOC guidelines; you have to meet Facebook's guidelines, and they don't let you really ask much of anything. I mean, you can't even ask the person what state they live in, for instance. Really, just ask first name, last name, and phone number. So what we do to take it to the next step is we get them off of Facebook, get them to fill out an application, and we continue to communicate with them until they get the application filled out. Then we move them into a video interview. So without taking the time of one of the employees on the staff, is we have them go in and do a video interview. And with that video interview, you're able to tell how they communicate. And in home services, I mean, people are going into people's.
Is that like an automatic interview?
Yeah.
Okay. So how does that work?
So when they've got their information, they fill out the application. You send them a text with a link to go, hey, we got your application. Everything looks good. The next step in the process is a video interview. Click the link below, and it will walk you through the steps to record the interview. It's as simple as clicking a few buttons on your phone, and then that gets them to go through and do that. And we have about a 60% conversion of people who apply of going through and getting the actual video recorded.
Oh wow, that's actually kind of high, because I've run ads on ZipRecruiter before, and I tried to do the same thing, but nobody really wanted to fill out the voice or video stuff. So that's interesting. But with the video interview, what software do you use for that?
Right now, we use a service called HireFlix. There's a couple of them out there. There's Spark Hire. We're using HireFlix. It's been around for a few years. They're very amenable to whatever changes. So you can actually talk to like the founders of the company, and they've made changes based on some of the things that we wanted. And it's a lot simpler than a lot of others, and it's as simple as sending them a link. You can have a single link for everyone who applies for a job, or you can make a specific link for each individual, and the system will do that automatically depending on how you want it to do. And because of that, also the other thing is, as soon as they click that link, there's you or the owner of the company going, hey, this is Jody with ABC. Thank you so much for being here. The next step is just go ahead and click the link right below here. You're going to be asked 4 questions. They're very simple. It's just a matter of answering the question. We're even going to give you a couple of seconds to be prepared before you start answering. And it just makes them feel comfortable. You let them know, and you're sort of selling them on the fact that they really want to do this because it's such a great job. They want to come to work for you.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love that, because presentation is really, really important, especially if you have people that are going to be going out and working in people's homes. That's really important. So tell me though, because you said you primarily advertise for these positions on Facebook and on Instagram. So why on those platforms versus, the standard ZipRecruiter, Monster, Indeed, all that other stuff?
Sure. So what we found, so again, whenever we started in the trucking industry, and in the trucking industry, there are specific trucking job websites like hireatrucker.com, cdllife.com, those kind of places. And you've got even their applications are mandated by the DOT. So, you have to go through 10th Street or Drivers Reach or the platforms where they have to fill out their applications. And what we found was, and what every one of the trucking companies said to us is, we don't want job hoppers. We don't want people that come in, they stay here for 3 or 4 months and then move on to the next thing. So what we found is, instead of going to those same places, we started advertising on Facebook and Instagram, because what we find is, whenever somebody's sitting there scrolling through their news feed on Facebook and they see an opportunity, they're more likely to be a more quality candidate than somebody that's on a job board looking to jump from one job to the next. And again, it doesn't mean that they're all perfect, but we have seen a higher quality of applicant. And we know they're really interested specifically in that job because they're not comparing it to 4 other companies on the job board. They're only looking at that. We have their attention. And then when they click the form, just like, as you know, with any type of sales funnel, we want to keep them singularly focused. We want to keep them just focused on our company, on our message, on what we're doing, so that they stay committed to that and they stay in that. And what's, as like with a sales funnel, you want to keep them in the ether, right? Keep them moving to that next step. And if they're not seeing 17 other companies with different jobs and they're staying there, it tends to be a more committed applicant. And then you're able to get to the quality after that. But that's the reason.
Yeah, because I've definitely, used a lot of those job sites before to hire for our company. And what I found is exactly what you're saying, is that people would reach out. Sometimes they might show up for their first interview or respond to a phone call. Sometimes they might not. And they just didn't seem, they just didn't seem like as, so I had some referrals early on that were like referrals of people I knew, and it was a great conversation. I found it was a lot easier to hire those people than people from one of these job sites. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So I've experienced exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah, they seem, like I said, it's more restrictive, but you tend to get a better quality applicant overall. It doesn't mean that doesn't mean you don't have to go through 10 people to get one solid one. But I mean, come on, if you're talking about the trades in trucking, an empty truck sitting is costing a company $22,000 a month on average to sit there.
Wow.
That's lost revenue, which seems big until you talk to someone in home services, like a plumbing company, and they say, oh, well, a truck sitting there empty and not having a tech in it, us having to not run calls, is probably more like $40,000 a month of the truck sitting there and no tech in it, not being able to run and not be able to run the calls. When you're talking to somebody that's had to pass on, a couple hundred calls over the course of the last 6 months, that adds up. And so that's, and it's, the need is there across the board, and it's just about positioning it. And to that end, the other thing on Facebook is, let's face it, how do most people run a job ad? We're looking for a person that does this, 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 and this, and has this skill and shows up for work on time and is committed, da-da-da-da-da. You do marketing, you do lead generation for business, for customers, right? Do you run an ad for customers going, we're looking for customers who pay their bills on time and who have never been paid for? No.
Who knows? Maybe I could try that.
Right.
Who knows what might happen?
Right. So basically, you have to do the same thing. You have to sell them on why working for this company is going to be in their best interest. And then you get to what you're looking for towards the bottom, but you're selling them on the benefits and the culture, on why this is a great company to work for. So really, sort of the ad becomes more like a sales letter than a recruiting ad.
Right. And I want to go back to, we were talking about why advertising on Facebook versus other platforms. I just want to make sure I understand the mentality that's happening. So somebody that is on a job site is more likely to be a job hopper that is, not happy with their current job, or maybe is currently unemployed. And then someone who finds you on Facebook and reaches out is more likely reaching out because maybe they were already content, but you just presented this brand new great opportunity for them. Does that sound kind of accurate? Okay. So that being said, sorry, you go ahead.
I'll say, because 100%, almost 100% of the people that you would like to know about your job are on Facebook. On
Right.
Indeed, only the people that are going to Indeed will ever see your job. Only the people that are going on Simply Hired will ever see it on Monster. With it on Facebook, I mean, the majority of the population is on Facebook.
I think it's like 80% of the population, which is almost everybody that's of age. You know, I know a few people that just a very few people in my life that aren't on Facebook, but you know, if you're over, you know, 12, 14 years old, maybe even younger now, you're on Facebook pretty much.
Yeah, usually if you're younger than 20, right? Because I have a 15-year-old daughter that she is not on Facebook. She's on Instagram and TikTok, but
Yeah, so those are going to be what's next, probably in the next 10 years or so. That's where the buying power is going to be at. But that's really cool, man. So like these people are content with their job. They're scrolling through Facebook. They see this opportunity. What is it that you're putting those ads? What opportunity are they seeing that makes them say, huh, this looks good. Maybe I should check this company out?
so one of the things that's really big right now, simply because of the way the market is, are sign-on bonuses. Whenever we first started doing trucking, hardly anybody had a sign-on bonus. That was like October last year. By February, every carrier that we work with now had a signing bonus, a sign-on bonus, because that they have to compete, right? And then trucking is really competitive right now. Now, map that over to a lot of people I've talked to, like, at home services, there's no way I'm paying a sign-on bonus. But the fact is, if your competitors are paying a sign-on bonus and someone has a choice, you know, they have to take it at the value of what's there. A sign-on bonus is not the only decision maker in the process, but it does sweeten the pot a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to, you know, if you make a $2,000 sign-on bonus, that the day they sign on, they get the $2,000. You know, you make it where they get $500 when they sign up, they get 500 at 30 days, 500 at 60, 500 at 90, or you can even stretch it out longer than that. And to that point, I was driving by McDonald's the other day, and they used to have bandit signs that said it, but now it's on their marquee on the sign, that the LED sign. You know, now hiring, $400 sign-on bonus for McDonald's. For McDonald's, that, you know, usually they have a waiting line of people to go work for there, especially younger people. But right now they're even paying a sign-on bonus. Will it be that way forever? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But it's sort of what has to happen right now. And
yeah, and a lot of people, they tend to not like, oh, it's so hard to find good people. People don't want to work, but the market is what it is, and it's going to stay that way, most likely for a while. And you have to work with the market. You have to figure something out that works for the market. So if you're not gonna, you know, spend a bunch of personal time going and recruiting and doing all these referrals, then you have to do something like this to make your position more attractive.
Yeah.
So you're saying like a good sign-on bonus is a pretty good offer to have out there. And then on the back end, you can pretty much pay that out however you want, but it's a good thing that gets initial attention, right? Is that pretty much what I'm, okay. And so besides a sign-on bonus, is there anything else? Like what are some other things that people would see on that initial ad that would sweeten the pot and make them curious and say, hey, I want to check this out?
So a big one is, even in trucking, the question that comes up a lot, you want to have all the questions answered, right? And if you've been recruiting for a while, you know what the questions are going to be. It's, you know, is this a W-2 or a 1099? That's a big deal, right? Because if it's W-2, if it's 1099, then they know it's just going to be whatever the money is what the money is. They got to pay their own taxes and that type of thing. With W-2, now the question is, okay, great, it's W-2, they're going to be withholding taxes, you know, Social Security, all that. Is, you know, FICA, are there benefits? What are the benefits? You know, and even in the trades now, more and more people are asking right off the bat, do you have a 401k? Because we all know that, you know, to depend on Social Security whenever we reach that age may not only be there, but may not be as much as we need to be able to live. And so they know that they need to start investing in their future. And so a 401k a lot of times is a big deal, but mainly it's, what are the benefits? Do I have paid time off? And do I get holidays off? So those are the main things that they want to know, you know? And so
I'm surprised you didn't mention insurance in there. How big is insurance, or how high is insurance on that list?
It's very high. I was just going down the list from memory. I didn't have anything in front of me. They want it, and it's not just medical. It's medical, life, dental, You know, they want
Wow.
to know, is there, you know, do you have, what is the word I'm looking for? Basically the insurance goes on top of it, like Aflac, you know, something like that, so that, you know, they get paid if something happens. Forgot the word I'm looking for, but anyway, so those things are in there. Now, in the trades especially, what happens to control or can impair their ability to earn money? It's the same thing in trucking as it is in the trades. It is the dependability of the vehicle that they're going to be using. Are they going to have to use their own vehicle, or are they going to be having a company vehicle? And if it's a company vehicle, is it a newer vehicle? Is it well maintained? You know, and so you have to look at that. What type of vehicle are they? Because they want to know those things. And even if you don't put it in the ad, you want to make sure whoever's answering the phone and talking to them has those answers. So, like for instance, with trucking, we take it all the way through that process. We get to know the company so well, even in the trades as well, that whenever our recruiters are talking to someone, they are talking to them as though they're an employee of that company. So they answer the phone, you know, ABC Trucking, and they think that that our recruiters that work for us are sitting in their office. They're not. You know, they're all over the place. But they know enough about it that they can answer the questions. In trucking, it's like, is it an automatic or is it standard truck? You know, does it have a sleeper? Does it have an APU? Does it have, you know, all these different things that are quality of life things? What is their home time like? The questions that they'll have to know, you know, that they're going to want to know, or your non-negotiables, you know, will be, you know, you got to work, you have to be available 24/7. You got to be able to go on trouble calls, those kind of things. So it's building those in.
Okay, that makes sense. And I feel like more and more nowadays, and we were just talking about this, the market is demanding more and more benefits for employees, bonuses, all that stuff. But I also feel like there's somewhat of a sales process. I even saw on your website, it says, hey, you not only need leads, but you need a process to turn these leads for recruits into, you know, actual employees, right? So when you generate these leads for people, these recruit leads, what is the best sales process to turn them from, you know, this cold person that's just kind of interested in working for you to, okay, now they're working for you?
It's having the recruiter understand enough about the company to be able to sell them on the company while they're talking to them. Because that's really what it has to be. Just like if a customer calls in and they need the service, the person answering that phone, they've gone with, you know, the industry has gone from calling them CSRs, you know, customer service reps or customer sales reps, to being customer sales specialists for the customers calling in. Your recruiter or whoever's talking on the phone needs to be in that same position to be able to sell the recruit on the opportunity. And
So it can't just be an order taker position. Great, I'll schedule your appointment. They have to be pretty much a sales person.
And that's a little bit foreign to a lot of recruiters today, right? They're used to, I'm not going to talk to this person until they filled out the app, they've done all this stuff, they've gone and got their drug tests, they've got everything in place, then I'll talk to them. You got to start the sales process early on. It needs to start with the instant communications. Like with our company, as soon as they fill out the information, we get them off of Facebook, they receive a text message with a link to go fill out the application. 45 minutes later, if they haven't filled out the application, they get another text. And we keep communicating with them until we get that application filled out. Then when it's filled out, we communicate with them to get the video interview done. And we walk them through, and we're also calling them. We're not just depending on automations. We're putting that human element in there as well. Because after all, who are you going to pay more attention to? A company that basically is only talking to you on Facebook or sends you a text, one or two messages and then quits? Or the company that continues to nurture you, that continues to send you text messages, send you emails, have someone calling you because they're interested in you? I mean, as humans, we respond to those people who pay attention to us. I mean, it's just how we operate. And the more you pay attention to them, now some people get annoyed, but so what? That's 2 or 3% of the population that gets annoyed. And if they do, great. They just unsubscribe and you never talk to them again. It's no big deal. But, you know, we want to continue to communicate with them. And we've even gone back, like I said, we've been doing this in trucking for, you know, for right at a year now. And we have drivers that come back around. You know, we'll send something out. If we haven't spoken to them in 6 months, we'll send out, you know, 10 or 15, we'll send out messages to 10 or 15 drivers that applied 6 months ago. Say, hey, one time you were interested. We just want to see if you still have an interest, and basically reactivate them. So
exactly, it is so similar to just a typical sales process, typical leads you get as customers. You have your booking process, you have your sales process, you have your onboarding, you have your lead reactivation. So the days of just, hey, we're offering a job, want to come work for us, are just, they're done, they're gone.
Right. Or here's our job, line up to see if you qualify. Those days.
Right. You can't have that attitude anymore.
Right.
So yeah, that's awesome, man. So what do you think it takes, or what do you see in your experience, can companies do to retain good employees once they get them?
Right. So one of the things that's come up recently is whenever you're offering a sign-on bonus, a lot of times your existing employees will see that and go, hey, what about those of us who have been around a long time? What about us? So you're making sure that you have a way to address that with the communications with them. But the other thing is, what happens when the trades, especially, right? They come in, if they take their vans home, a lot of times they don't come in back into the office for maybe a week at a time, and their only communication is with who? The dispatcher. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a strained relationship if they don't want to go on the next call or that type of thing. So it's having a messaging system where they're getting consistent information from someone other than the dispatcher, from the owner, from someone in HR, from their manager, to basically and it's not necessarily be all the rah motivational necessary every time, but like a tip that someone did. Hey, here's an example of someone that was able to sell this system, and here's what they said. They're giving them tips, things that are going to help them increase their revenue, increase their pay, because a lot of them are paid for performance today. So keeping them engaged, giving them little tips, things that they can think about. So it's really engagement. And then
would you recommend like partly automating that process, like having a text and email sequence that just automatically goes out to all new recruits?
Yeah, everybody, not just new recruits. I mean, you need to be sending those messages out to the person that's been with you for 5 or 6 years as well, because because and then you also, if you have a system where you can track that they click the link and watch the video, but also as a leading indicator, if you have someone that hadn't looked at anything in 2 or 3 weeks, it's someone that you may want to pay a little special attention to and have a conversation with them and say, hey, just checking in. We've sent a couple of things out to make sure, just see how things are going. Is there anything that's on your mind? And then add that personal touch. So use the automation to gauge the engagement of the employees, and then reach out with the personal touch if they're not engaging with that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really cool. So we'll wrap up here. So is this something like that sales process, as well as generating the leads, is that something that you do with companies in your business?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll walk them all the way through, from the campaign setup of the ads all the way through. We map out every step of their process.
Okay.
Because the other part of it is, just because that's the process that they've been using for 10 years doesn't mean that it's the best process. Now, granted, everyone's doing the best they can, and I'm not here to say that, oh, your processes are broken, but a lot of them could use some fine tuning, or just like a house, right? The houses have been around 10 years. You want to go in, you may have to change the carpet, you may have to clean it up a little bit, you put a fresh coat of paint on it. Some of those things have to happen. So the first thing we do is we map out, what does the hiring process look like, from
what is the current hiring process?
The current hiring process, to then map it over to automating that process. Because the other thing you have to get is the buy-in from the team that's existing, the team that's there. And that does not everybody likes change. As they say, the only people that like change is a baby with a dirty diaper. But with this, you have to go in and map out the process so that they buy in, giving them input as to the things that are happening. Because we have gone into places and wound up, having a couple of people that were actually replaced because they just would not adapt to the system, and it was costing the company money with what they were doing. That's not to say it happens all the time. It's a rare occasion. Most of the time when we bring in a system, the thing we get is, oh my God, we love this. This is so much easier than what we were doing. Because so many people have just been doing it the same way. And what they'll say is, oh, we have recruiters been here for 10, so they've got 10 years experience with recruiting. I challenge that. And it's like, really, do they have 10 years experience in recruiting, or do they have 1 year experience that they've repeated 10 times?
Right. Yeah, exactly. 100%. Now, are you currently, so I know you have the truck recruiting side of things. Are you doing, or what are you doing in home services currently?
Right. Like I said, we're working with a couple of different companies right now, and just sort of, because we were putting it in place. One of them was more of an acquaintance than a customer that said, "Hey, I see what you're doing. Can you come in and help me?" It was a very large company, and there was a lot of things we had to build out and put in place. So the answer is, as we go, we'll be testing the waters, mapping out to see if it does map over as easily as it looks like it does. Because as we go, like I said, when you do a shift like this, you sort of are flying the airplane while you're building it.
Right.
Say, hey, yeah, we're open for business. We'll take on 100 new people in the home services company. That would be a disaster because we wouldn't be able to fulfill it, and they would be mad. So right now we're going slowly. We're taking on larger customers because what we do is not cheap either. I mean, what we do is expensive because when you look at an empty truck costing somebody $30,000 a month and having to go in and create process and learn their business and learn their culture and be able to put that into basically a sales process, it takes time, effort, and energy. And so our pricing is a little bit on the higher side than what people typically might be used to. But it's the results that comes in that that causes that to go. So yeah, we're looking at doing that.
If someone watches this video and would like to reach out to you, would you, in their home services, would you entertain having that conversation and just see if it's a good fit for what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is even if it winds up not being a fit for us to do it, just having that conversation, they're going to walk away with some suggestions. And what I do is I don't ever do a sales meeting. Peter, what I do is I always do a recommendations meeting. Here's the recommendations of what I would do if it was my business, so that in a lot of those recommendations they can take and put into place themselves. I always want to make sure that anyone I'm dealing with, whenever they walk away from the meeting, that they walk away better off for it, whether they choose to do business with us or not. So if they do decide they wanted to do that, if they wanted to have a conversation, it would, what we're putting in place right now, because the system does work quickly once it's in place, as we call it rapid hire. It would be rapidhire.info would be where they would, if they wanted to just see a little more about it, or just schedule a call just to have a conversation to see if it's something that would be a fit.
Good deal. Now, what advice would you give? Because I know a lot of companies watching this are going to be, a little bit smaller. They might have 5 employees, might use a few subs. So if a company like that is just, they have a lot of work coming in and they really need more guys or gals, what would you recommend a company like that do?
So one of the things we have is our solution is broken into 3 different pieces, because we have the higher level, the concierge, where we're actually learning the culture and putting everything in place and answering the phones, is our concierge done for you. We have 2 other packages as well. We have a do-it-yourself, where we set up the Facebook ads, we set up we have our entire system, the rapid hire system, that they can then take and utilize and put in place and monitor and manage themselves. And that is much more reasonable. Then we also have the middle level, which is done with you, where we won't be picking up the phones and spending recruiters' time making calls and interviewing, but we do monitor and respond, and you offer a concierge level of text response, so that then their recruiters mainly doing phone calls. So there's 3 different structures to that, and the prices go down significantly based on the package, or go up, whichever way you want to look at it.
And is that where you recommend someone go if they want to get in touch with you, the rapidhire.info?
Yeah, rapidhire.info, because it's going to be the place it's for that specifically. Because being rapid hire, we have a bunch of different things, but info is where you basically can get some information to make the decision whether or not it's something that they even want to have a conversation.
All right, good deal. Hey, well, thanks, man. You've been amazing. I feel like I learned a lot. And I'm excited to keep talking with you and keep working with you.
Glad to do it.
Again, thanks for being on the show, and you have an awesome rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thank you. And for those of you watching this guy is amazing. I wish I knew what he knows at that age. I would be way beyond where I am today. So those of you watching this, if you need his services, Peter is like stellar. I'm working with him on some stuff, and he's amazing. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, awesome. Hey, take care, Jody. I'll see you later.